Hello everybody and welcome back to World of Warships Legends and welcome back to the path to the Chapayev. Now, I know it's been a minute, and I appreciate you guys being patient with me over the last few days of not getting a Chapayev video out, but as you guys know, went through my surgery. Good news is, after I went to the doctor, saw my surgeon today, I was able to find out that she's pretty certain that I'm either allergic or at least at very minimum intolerant of the ointment that he gave me to put on my eye 3 times a day. And that's what's been delaying my healing. So she changed it up. She gave me 2 eye droppers. One is a steroid, one is an antibiotic, and then she gave me a different ointment that is just for nighttime when I go to sleep. And I will be honest, in the very first application of all of the things, I feel way better already. So that's a good thing. We seem to have gotten to the bottom of why I was absolutely miserable. The ointment's still a little bit meh for me, so I'm not sure how we're going to do that, but it's for when I go to bed, so hopefully it won't be too bad. But anyway, we're going to get to the path to the Chapayev. Now, I appreciate you guys again for being so patient with me. I am not a Russian cruiser player, okay? Like, I have very minimal experience in these. But I did manage to get a huge, fun game right out the gate. Very first game in the Chapayev. So hopefully you guys enjoy. Let's get right to the commander. We're running Nikolai Kuznetsov as our commander build. We have Beyond Range, Igniter, Punch Through, Fixated, and Fully Packed as our inspirations. Or as our commander skills. And we are running Nikolai von Essen and Philip Vian as our inspirations. Okay, so keep that in mind. Now, for the ship build itself, we are running Aiming Systems Mod 1, we are running Propulsion Mod 2, and we are running Steering Gears Mod 3. With the Gunfire Control System mod for extra range on the main battery. You could swap that for this, but that does slow your turret traverse down, and the turret traverse isn't the greatest on these to begin with, so keep that in mind. Now, again, I want to stress that I am not the best when it comes to this. Now, if you were to choose anything, like maybe you take Propulsion mod off and go with Steering Gears mod 2, but I don't think it's going to help. This ship does not turn. Like, it just doesn't turn. So even increasing your ability to turn, I don't think is going to help as much. Whereas using Propulsion mod, it actually allows you to slow down, speed up a little bit quick. Well, I don't know about slow down, but it definitely helps you with speeding up quicker. And so throttle management is going to be something that you have to learn with this ship. And basically with this entire line, because of your inability to turn, you've got to learn to juke people out with varying your speed. Now, I'll be honest with you, I don't do this very well. And every time I try to vary my speed, it's at the wrong moment and I get dev struck. Okay, let's just put that out there. But there are people that are very, very good at that. And as long as you're not predictable with it, you can make people absolutely miserable when it comes to hitting you. Now, let's get looking at the loadout. We are running the Alpha Test flag. Again, this is completely cosmetic. There's no, like, bonuses here whatsoever. We are running the sonar instead of the defensive AA. We have the radar on there, of course, and we have our 3 heals. We are not running any boosters, and we are running the fancy Zvezar command. I don't know what that is, but fancy camo. It's like the Halloween camo that we got last year, I think. During the fancy Halloween event. But it's actually kind of cool. So we'll go over that. And of course, that gives you a minus 4.5% to your detectability and a plus 4.5% to incoming fire dispersion to add to what you get from the incoming fire dispersion buff from Philip Vian's inspiration. Survivability, 37,000 hit points. So, I mean, it's not the best. I say that. I always do this. I always say, well, it's not that great. And people go, Spartan, you don't even look. There's other ships that are worse than that. So let's just check, make sure, like something that I consider kind of beefy Yeah, 42,000 hit points. That's what I thought. So, Balti is what I consider a beefy cruiser at this tier, and it's got 42,000 hit points. So, I am right in saying that it's less hit points. It's not quite as good in terms of that as Balti. And we'll look at the armor here in a moment to showcase why this is even worse. Now, artillery, 152 millimeter guns, 57 caliber Mark V U's. You get 12 of them in 3 quad turrets. Or four triple turrets, sorry. The firing range is amazing at 19.3 kilometers. Reload time is 8 seconds, so pretty solid. And 180-degree turn time is 25 seconds. Now, I say the reload time is pretty solid, but you got to remember these are 152 millimeter guns, so that's actually not that great for 152 millimeter guns. To compare that to, say, the Cleveland, our Cleveland reloads in 6.5 seconds with the same size guns. Okay? So keep that in mind. Now, with that in mind, we also fire HE with a maximum shell damage of 2,300 with a 15% chance to set fires. And I believe that is better than the Cleveland. And AP shell maximum damage is 3,672. Now, I do not run EOP on my Russian light cruisers. I don't feel like you need to. Yeah, you do shatter quite a bit, but these things live and breathe by the fires they cause. And if you put EOP on and cut that fire chance in half, it really hurts these cruisers. Yeah, you start doing more damage with the shells that you do hit, but honestly, if you're placing your shots correctly and hitting the superstructures of battleships, you're going to be doing the damage anyway, even with EOP off. You do shatter if you hit the armor, of course, but generally speaking, you do okay with EOP off on these ships. So I don't recommend it personally. Now, secondaries, you have 100mm 70 caliber SM5-1s. You get 8 of those firing 5.2 kilometers every 4 seconds. They fire HE with a maximum shell damage of 1,400 and a 9% chance to set fires. Now, this always perplexes me. How does something with a 100mm secondary get a 9% chance to set fires, and the American 127s, which is the 5-inch guns, get like a 5% chance to set fires? And that's what I don't understand. But you guys will have to argue that with me later on. Torpedoes, still awful. You get 533mm triple 1-ins. You get 6 of those, a triple launcher on either side of the ship. They reload in 74 seconds, and they have a maximum damage of 17,933. The detectability, 1.3 kilometers. Torpedo range is just 4 kilometers. These are the epitome of defensive torpedoes. You only use these when you ambush somebody on the backside of an island or they come around the corner on you. That's the only time you will use these. Now, they are decently quick at 65 knots. Not amazingly fast, but decent. AA, you actually have okay AA. 37mm V11s. You get 28 of those, doing 129 damage per second, reaching out to 3.5 kilometers. And then, of course, you have the 100mm 70 caliber SM5-1s, dual-purpose secondaries that you got 8 of, doing 78 damage per second and firing out to 5 kilometers. Maneuverability. Maximum speed is 33.5 knots, so respectable in that sense. Not the fastest, but it is faster than Balti. Only just, but it is. Turning circle, like I said, horrendous. 890 meters. Yeah, it's bad. And the concealment with this build is awful as well. But you can see with our rudder shift time being 5.2 seconds with this build, because we go with that steering gears mod 3 or whatever it is in the 3rd slot instead of a concealment mod, that brings our rudder shift time way down. And you could go a double concealment or a double rudder, but I feel like the propulsion mod is probably going to be a better choice because your second rudder is only going to increase that to like 4 something. So I feel like you're getting diminishing returns, in other words. So I personally go with the propulsion mod in the 1st slot and the steering gears mod 3 because it's a better steering gears mod. But let me know what you guys think down in the comments as well. Concealment, awful. Because we don't run the concealment mod. 13.7 kilometer detectability by sea. Now, this isn't as bad as it seems, just due to the fact that you usually are firing your guns anyway. So you're going to be detected regardless. So it's not as bad as you think. Except in those instances where you're trying to get to where you want to be early in a match. Sometimes later in the match, but usually it's early in the match and you get caught. because the destroyers are pushing in and the battleships are all loaded and ready. So you've got to be careful, especially early on, and we're going to showcase that in this match coming up. So detectability 13.7 by sea, 8.6 by air, 2 is always guaranteed, and 7.5 kilometer smoke firing penalty, which I believe is awful for a 152 millimeter gun. And I mean, let's just check. Cleveland? Yeah, 6.1 kilometer detectability while firing in smoke with the same caliber gun, or same millimeter gun. So keep that in mind. And that's what I thought. It's just not, it's not particularly good. But again, concealment mod is on, we use the concealment mod on our Cleveland, I believe. We do not use the concealment mod on the Chapayev. Okay, so stats. We've already done all that because I'm an idiot. Armor. This is the downside of this ship. And it's only because it got nerfed. Now, it's got a 26 millimeter belt armor at the front, which used to be, I want to say it was 30 or 32 millimeters. Maybe it was 27, but I think it was 30 or 32 millimeters. And it used to make this ship dang near impossible to kill because they tend to stay at range. I believe it used to be also a lot more maneuverable back in the day. But yeah, it got a huge nerf. I want to say it was a month or two, maybe it was 3 or 4 months into its first, like, after release, essentially. It got nerfed hard. And it was before I ever got a chance to play it. That's how early it got nerfed, because it was just broken. You would hit this thing at any sort of range, and instead of getting, like, plunging fire through the deck, it seemed like it always hit the belt, and it always bounced and shattered, and it was just awful. But, yeah. It no longer has that. It has 26 millimeters, which is not enough to stop even 15-inch guns from going through. And the rest of the armor up there is 26 millimeters as well. So again, not quite enough to stop 15-inch guns. You need 27 millimeter gun, or 27 millimeters of armor to stop 15-inch guns from overmatching you. That's why the Balti is so strong, because it has that 27 millimeter bow and stern armor. So without that, you really have to rely on making battleships miss you, and trying to, when they do hit you, let them hit the freaking belt at an angle. Because the belt's not bad, but you also have to show, once again, because it's Russian, that that belt is actually your citadel. And any chance that something gets through, that raised citadel is going to bite you right in the backside. Every single time. Especially if you get caught in the bow side plating or the stern side plating, because it's a free citadel every time and usually results in your swift removal from the match. So keep that in mind. Okay? Now, overview. Sure shot. Shells with a good ballistic trajectory maintain velocity, making aiming easier. Pyromania. Above average chance for HE shells to cause a fire. And superior AP damage. Above average AP shell damage, which do not sleep on the AP of this thing, especially when you're running Von Essen. The AP on this thing, not quite Balti-esque, but again, Balti is 203 millimeter guns, okay? And super heavy AP. For a light cruiser, this thing rivals Cleveland in terms of AP output. So you cannot sleep on this thing. It's not Tallinn. Tallinn's ridiculous. But this thing is nasty on its own. So be very, very cognizant when you're going up against the Chapayev. If you give a broadside, even in a battleship, you give a broadside, this thing will absolutely punch you with AP. Chapayev, a light cruiser with powerful artillery built under the Big Fleet program, Project 68. The ship was slightly slower than her predecessors, but significantly surpassed them in armor protection. During her upgrade, the cruiser received considerably enhanced AA defense. She entered service in 1950. There were 7 of them in the series. So let's take a look at this. Now, I know it's a weird camo, and it might not be your thing, but I do like this ship. It's just not normally my play style. However, I feel like we got the perfect match for this ship, and I think you guys are going to enjoy it. But it's not a bad looking ship either. Now again, this is going to come down to a little bit of the weird camo, but I don't hate it, even with the weird camo. Now, if we get rid of that camo and put on my normal permanent camo that I created for the ship, and then we look at it, you can see that it is, in fact, a decent-looking ship. Definitely looks okay modern-wise. It's not super modern, but it does stick out of the water quite a bit, and that's something that draws my attention. That reminds me of the British cruisers that get you into a lot of trouble. There's a lot of ship there to hit. So, with that being said, let's get to the gameplay. Alrighty, so we're going to be on Trap. And, as I mentioned in the lead-up, I think that we have absolutely got the best possible scenario to play out in the very first game. Now, when I do these Path 2 especially, these Path 2 videos especially, I look for very specific scenarios to showcase the best and the bads of the ship that I'm showcasing. May not always be damage, okay? So I do try to, have a certain threshold of damage to show you guys, because I feel like, it just makes the video more entertaining, even if it's not something that you would normally be interested in. But it's not always about damage. I do like to showcase the ship. I like to talk about, my particular play style in the ships and how I see other people play them. And the Chapayev is something that I think a lot of people underestimate. You don't see him very often anymore, though we are going to run up against one here in this match. You don't really see him very often, and they are very, very good, especially at range, but a lot of people misuse this ship and stay at max range. Now, part of that is due to the fact that it did get such a nerf, and like I said, I'm fairly confident the nerf was bow armor being weakened, and the turning ability of the ship being nerfed as well. I think that was the two things that this ship got, and like I said, it was a big nerf, and it was a big deal when everybody found out about it. But this ship is still very, very good, especially in the hands of a very good cruiser player. I consider myself to be a decent cruiser player. Not the greatest, not even close, but a decent cruiser player. I'm pretty solid in American cruisers for sure, but yeah, these things are nasty. Now, right off the rip, you see that 15% fire chance, but the one thing that you don't realize is just how accurate these things are. These things will put all the rounds on target if you can aim. Now, they are somewhat floaty at these kinds of ranges, which is nice because it allows you to get over those islands, but it is nowhere near as floaty as we take a nasty hit from that Amagi. And you can see the Chapayev on the enemy team landing some AP at range on us. Now, we already had 2 fires on him. He used his damage con, and then we get that perma fire. And that's not going to be the first time that we do this to this Amagi. This poor guy is going to be on fire a lot. So keep that in mind. Now, 90% of the time, you're going to be shooting HE out of this thing, just like you do most Russian cruisers, just due to the fact that most of the targets you're coming up against, you want to keep your distance. Now, this is a mismanaged radar. I thought that the DD was closer than it was, but I forget that I have a 13.7 kilometer detection range. So you can see, we're going to waste a lot of this radar until the very last second, and then the guy pops up. Now, we do get a shot out real quick. The Talin also gets a shot out, and between the two of us, we are both going to hit this guy and reset the cap. Which is going to be big. Now, our destroyer, I need to tell you this. Our destroyer, our Jerv, I think it's a Jerv, no, maybe it's a Benham. I think it's a Benham. Our Benham on this team does a fantastic job, as this sneaky little punk in the Amagi gets a shot over this island, catches me off guard, and I have to make a quick turn and get very lucky. He had a lot of shells grouped up that had bad intentions for my bow, and I do not approve, sir. Now, remember, Talin also, I believe, has a radar. So Talin's going to move up, try to get himself into a position. You can see Chapayev still lobbing this island, showcasing that while these things have a pretty solid ballistic trajectory, it also does manage to shoot over islands relatively well, as long as you're not right up on the island, as we will showcase later in this fight. But Lay Terrible gets radared, I'm assuming. It could be spotted by the Benham, but the Benham's laying smoke. And the Talin does radar here, I think. And, well, he disappears, but he keeps getting re-spotted. and we're going to try to hit him. You can see our dispersion not the best on that first shot, but we do follow it up, and we are going to hit him with a few shells here on the next one. We have 19,200. We hit him with a shell, get 19,600, so not a lot of damage, 400 damage there, but this Talin gets smashed by that Almagi, man. Just absolutely uncalled for. Sir, I'm going to need you to calm down, okay? You do that to me, I'm not going to lie, I'm going to break something. So we go ahead and showcase our disdain for this Amagi by once again setting him on fire, but I don't know what just happened to that man's health. It was not me, I swear. There is no way that 7 hits with HE did that much damage to that man. But we once again managed to turn out a void, and that's the main thing with this ship. You have to start turning before they shoot. You have to, because this thing does not turn. Now, it can be kind of shifty up close, but it never finishes the turn properly. And that's one of the things that I've mentioned in previous videos of these Russian cruisers, even the Stalingrad. It baits you in as a player, thinking, oh, this thing's going to turn really well. And then for some reason, it gets like halfway into the turn and just stops turning. It's super weird. If you've never experienced it, the first time it happens to you, you get depth struck, you'll remember this, you'll be like, Spartan was right. He totally baited me in there. I was like, I'm going to be able to turn just fine. And then, pow, you're dead. Now, because we have such good range on this thing, and it's usable range, it's not completely useless like some cruisers are at these kinds of ranges, because you can still hit reliably with multiple rounds at these ranges. As we're going to showcase and get another fire on that Poltava, he immediately, no, actually doesn't damage con it. I thought he damaged con that, but he is burning. And we set another, we get another shot out. He is hidden behind the island now, but we're going to keep going. You can see the Amagi still firing his guns at us. Maybe it was the Chapayev, but we're not sticking around to find out. We're putting distance between us. We're no longer spotted, which is great, meaning these guys are outside of our visual detection range when firing our guns, or behind islands. And so we're going to be able to hit this guy plenty, and the battleship's going to finish him off here. And that's solid. Now, this game's going to come down to the wire, folks. We're actually losing this right now. Keep that in mind. But we have 2 caps. And the fact that we keep these 2 caps for a while here is actually going to come in huge later in the game, because this game flips real quick. We go from having the cap control to giving up all the cap control in very short order. Now, I'm moving back across because you'll notice there is one battleship on this A cap, or about to go into the A cap, that's by himself. Now, the downside is he's going to catch me off guard, and it's going to cost me a little bit, because I am putting myself in position to help my destroyer right now. And this is what you've got to pay attention to. You've got to try to make sure that you're in position to help people. And when this destroyer has done so well for so long, you want to try to help him out as best as possible. So we're moving over here to the B cap to put ourselves in position to help with this Talin that's over here, the München that was over here. We want to try to help the destroyer and the battleship get rid of those 2 DPM cruisers. And so we are coming over to help. Now, München gets spotted here. He's on the backside of the island. There's nothing I can do here. We do take a test shot just to see if we can fire through the gap, and clearly we can't. They're going to come up short. And that's one of the downsides of these guns, is they just can't lob islands quite as well as, say, a Cleveland. But that also means that they are much more accurate at range and much easier to hit targets at range than a Cleveland is. Now, you can see I am anticipating the München and the Talin being over here in this gap. We know Talin's coming, and we get spotted here. And I'm not going to lie, it takes me a moment to figure it out. Now, we take a shot with AP at range on this Amagi. Now, remember, 41,053 damage currently. How much damage are we going to get with this AP at that range? We actually get 1 overpen. Only 3 shells managed to hit the target. I don't know if he turned out or what, but it was actually the Bismarck that was spotting me. And I was like, how am I spotted right now? And sure enough, it was the Bismarck. So we go ahead, we switch back to HE, and we start getting ready to kite. We do not want to be 10 kilometers away from a battleship, especially a Bismarck, because God knows, if anything can go wrong against a Bismarck for me, it's going to. The Bismarck knows how much I hate that ship. And so any chance it gets to go up against me, it seems like it is the most accurate battleship on the planet, especially when I'm in a cruiser. So we're not going to play around with him. Now, Talin actually has me spotted right now. He's in the Charlie cap, getting ready to fight our Flounder. And our Flounder is going to squander that freaking side of the map something fierce. He's getting rushed by a Talin and a Chapayev. And that Flounder is actually going to lose that fight. How? I have no idea. But you can see we go ahead, we switch over to AP just to test the AP against the broadside of a battleship. A decently armored battleship at that. And it was a little lackluster, if we're honest. 2 penetrations and 1 overpin. Not too bad. But again, he was backing up. We didn't have the best angle. And we're not real close to him. So, you know, you test it out just because. Now, our battleship behind us is actually going to try to help with this Talin. He gets his shot off before me, and the Caracciolo hits its mark. The Flounder, still relatively healthy, is going to eat all of these torpedoes and die, which is real unfortunate. I'm not going to lie. So that's how he managed to flub that side. I'm not sure. But look at the cap control right now. We go from having 2 caps to losing all 3 caps real quick, didn't we? So that's what I'm saying. Like, this game is still anybody's ball game, but we're throwing away cap control like it's going out of style. We need to stop this Chappie from capping as quickly as possible. If we give up the other 2 caps, we can work with that. Because we know that everybody over here is low health, with the exception of the Bismarck. But we know that they're relatively low health. So if we can get rid of this full health Chappie, that is our goal, while keeping him spotted and hopefully able to keep him burning here and try to get rid of him. Like, that is the goal. If we can get rid of this guy, that's going to allow us to have very, very preferable outcome for the end of this match. You'll see what I mean in a moment. This all comes down to planning, okay? You've got to think ahead. We know where everybody else is, right? We know that the Amagi was way out in the distance and is coming back to regroup with his team. We know that the München is the one that captured Bravo, and we know that the Bismarck is the one that captured Alpha. So if we can stop the Chappie from capping this base, which we did, we successfully drove him from the cap. And you can see I am checking my torp range right now. I'm like, okay, well, 4 kilometers, probably not going to get to use it. But watch this. I go ahead and I punch the radar just to spot him and see what he's doing. And as soon as I see he's doing the thing that I want him to do, I'm going to go ahead and sneak in, and I'm going to have the AP loaded for his broadside. I know he has a raised citadel, and I know I can exploit that. Now, he does punch his sonar, which does get me detected, which means he's ready, but we get the front guns through, and you can see 2 citadels with just the front guns, and he had HE loaded for me, which is great. Because of that, we're going to have our reload, and we're going to kill this man before he ever gets a chance to shoot us, and he actually tries to torp us. And then we get citadeled from the Amagi from across the map. It could have been the Bismarck, but I think it was actually the Amagi. Not going to lie, a little bit salty, but look at the position that we are now in. Remember, we have 1 cap to their 2, so they're actually only gaining on us by like 3 points every tick, right? So it's not as bad as it seems. And if we can continue to get rid of these guys, then that's only going to help. Now remember, Bismarck just took 2 torpedoes right there. What does that mean? 90% of the time, that's floods, which means that he is now damage conned. So we go ahead, we start targeting him with HE. Why? Because we want to set the permafires. Our destroyer has played extremely well, keeping himself alive, making sure that he's in position to spot these guys. He's still attacking them, and he's giving us the opportunity to do our job in the way that this ship is meant to do it. We're on the backside of an island, they can't see us. We do take a shot here, and all of a sudden I'm like, oh god, how are we detected? And then I was like, Amagi. So Amagi is just in the perfect spot to catch us at that moment. We do get 2 fires on this man. Amagi, we get very lucky right there. I'm not going to lie. That was so lucky. But we go ahead, we take a shot at this Amagi, and watch what happens. We're going to get a good hit on him, and we're going to cause another fire. And again, we're up to 10 fires now in the match. Like, this is no joke, right? Like, anytime you're getting double-digit fires, you're doing the Lord's work. Or, in this case, the devil's work. Because nobody likes being on the receiving end of an HE spammer. But the 2 fires were enough to kill the Bismarck due to the permafires. And the Benham, you can see, I'm about to say, I need intelligence data. What does he do? He goes out, he spots for me. It's a crazy concept, I know. And he doesn't do it stupidly. He doesn't put himself in danger. You can see here, I'm not 100% sure these are going to clear. I'm just like, take the shot, you never know. And remember, he already damage conned our last fire, which means that's a perma-fire. So we are absolutely tearing these guys up, thanks to the Venom doing his job. And I have said this over and over again. And I try to point it out when I see people doing good things. Like, I know I get a lot of flack because I tend to be overly aggressive in games, and you guys know that I can be, actually a little toxic, and some say more than a little toxic. But our battleship behind me, Caracciolo, gets a shot over the island. Beautiful shot on the München. And once again, we're almost ready to use our last radar here. Now remember, we get 3 radars because of the fully packed. But I always like to point out when people do things right, too, because people can learn from that, as well as me pointing out when people screw up. Now, we know that we shoot their front guns around the island. We know that that's a citadel. Like, there's no chance. And so we're able to kill that guy. He doesn't even get a shot off. That's huge, because we don't have a lot of health. And München is solid as well. And you can see the 6 seconds left. The Caracciolo finishes off the Amagi, and we get that high cow. We get all the things. And so this match ended up being a very fun first match out in the Chapayev. Top of the leaderboard, 2,653 damage with 3 kills. Caracciolo coming in second, absolutely killing it for a bottom tier ship. 2,578 base XP with 3 kills. And then an honorable mention. You can see I actually sent an invite to add him because I can't send him a message saying GG. And then the Venom honorable mention and the Nagato as well. 2,000 base XP for Nagi and knocking on the door of 2,000 for the Venom. And we couldn't have done what we did at the end without that Venom. So let me know what you guys think. And if you like what I'm doing, punch the like button, leave a comment below, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and as always, I will see you in the next video.